Hey guys, what's up? Ross Dunn, and I'm back with some new fucking audio equipment too. This should be a lot better. Finally decided to actually take some money out of my own personal finances and get that shit sorted. So here we are, hopefully back. I got super sick the last 2 weeks. I'm fine now, but I caught a really crazy dose of the flu. And in fairness, I've been okay probably for the last 4 or 5 days. But I had a cough, an ongoing cough that just wouldn't go away. Give me some time to read up on the human immune system. And actually, Kugasact, or In a Nutshell, does a wonderful series of videos about the immune system in a really colorful and animated way. So that's kind of what happened to me. I dropped off the radar there, but again, mainly because my health went to garbage. So, there's going to be a video link in the description below, and it's going to be about something that happened on a college campus. I know for the most part right now, we're focusing a lot on what's going on college campuses in the United States, where just more and more often the regressive left are pushing and pushing and pushing on people in a way that's really starting to come to light in a very public way. For me, this is probably the death toll now of the regressive left, or at least this is going to hurt them in a serious way. This crawling out of the woodwork to expunge logic that people just are not going to be able to agree with, because fundamentally, at the end of the day, the inherent logic structures of the regressive left, many of their axioms more or less just go against fairness. People have a sort of basic sense of fairness that they develop from a very young age. They do. I did. You probably did. Unless you're some sort of sociopathic little shit, most people understand that what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and that makes sense to people. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think that sort of logic should apply to absolutely everything. I definitely think that there are obviously going to be exceptions, but for generally, people have a sense of fairness. And when you start spitting out ideological narratives which really go against that, it starts really grating on people. So the contents of the video, linked below, are basically sort of a students rallying for the creation of a safe space on campus. Sorry about that. A safe space on campus, and as it occurs, and a young Asian woman, unfortunately, I think she said she was Chinese. She might not have. That actually might just be my ignorance talking, and I do apologize for that. But she went on to tell a short story about how she had come to the United States and to study, and her language wasn't great, and she had faced challenges, and as any sort of foreign student would, it's unfortunate that these people face these kinds of challenges, but she does, and she deals with them. And she sort of went on about a story about how she was walking down the street, and these two people hung out the window and sort of screamed, "Why don't you go back to your own country?" And that sort of like typical bottom level racism, discriminatory sort of way that just fucking morons do. And she then unveiled that these two people were black. And that's when stuff started getting weird, because she basically accused them of being what they were. They were racist. And she said that a nice white lady sort of came up to her and, asked her, was she okay? And she was fine. And then she wanted to call the police. She was fine. But then the crowd started, specifically, I don't think you saw the voices. I think they came from off camera. But then it started with this. They weren't racist. Racism is privilege plus power. They weren't racist. And this woman was like, no, I was discriminated against. These people saw me as being different, as being from another country. I was being discriminated against that was racist. No, it can't be racist. Racism is privilege plus power, etc., etc., etc. So they robbed this woman of her victimhood. She was subject to racial abuse. The problem with this prejudice plus power narrative is it's trying very specifically. It's a very nice way of saying that group A or B cannot be racist because the primary group, the primary socioeconomic driver of a society, is the only one that can. This definition of racism is super dangerous. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't actually disagree necessarily with it. I do believe that the people in the position to execute the most vitriolic kinds of racism are those who have privilege and power and wealth. Those are definitely the people who can execute the most, violent and hateful form of racism. That's just true. Because obviously if they have the privilege and the power and the wealth, they can create systems which disadvantage those below them. However, that's not the only definition of racism. And it's super scary that it's becoming the only definition of racism. In fact, it's really quite dangerous. As I said, this woman was robbed of her victimhood. Realistically, she was. She was robbed of any sense of bereavement, and her status as being subject to racial abuse was taken from her. She was not allowed to have that because the new definition of racism is, as I said, purely just privilege plus power. It is also privilege plus power. That's a fact. That's true. But it is not only privilege plus power. It is possible, believe it or not, for people who do not have privilege and power to discriminate based upon ethnicity and race. That's possible. To say that that isn't possible is nonsense of the highest order. This woman was subject to racial abuse. She was. And to disagree with that and to argue only that racism is privilege plus power and not also privilege plus power is extremely dangerous, and as I said in the beginning of the video, goes against people's basic sense of fairness. It's stupid, it needs to stop, or at least it needs to incorporate the real, honest-to-God definition of racism, which is discrimination based against a person because of their ethnicity or race. Not just that one thing. Anyway, that's how I feel about it, and I don't think I'm being nonsensical here. I don't think I'm being absurd. I don't think my position as a white person really sort of has any bearing on that reasoning. It doesn't. It needs to stop. This is the thing about this new culture, and I'm not even going to call it political correctness because I don't believe necessarily that there's anything wrong with being politically correct. You often have the choice to say things and you can choose not to say them. That's political correctness is, I think, just showing people a sense of decency. That's kind of how I view political correctness. But let's not think for a flat minute that regressive leftism and political correctness are the same. Regressive leftism is an inherently hypocritical system, which really, 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 really bigs up minor acts of victimhood and things like microaggressions and really just makes people... they want this privilege of victimhood. And I know that sounds stupid. How can you be a privileged victim? Trust me, when it comes to soapboxing, it's a great way of getting it done. But I digress. That's just how I feel about that at the moment. So yeah, hopefully I'm back. See you around. Have fun. Take it easy. I'm Ross Dunn. Like, comment, subscribe.